Is this the best we can do, Johnson? MS. Evelyn Reed's voice cut through the air, sharp as a freshly sharpened scalpel. Her gaze swept over the main lobby, lingering on the faded carpets, the slightly crooked welcome sign, and the stack of undelivered packages precariously teetering near the reception desk. Because if it is, I suggest you all start updating your resumes. My heart hammered against my ribs, a familiar beat these days. I'm Kieran, and I've seen my share of office drama, but this was a masterclass in impending doom. See? MS Reed wasn't just any corporate boss. She was the new head honcho from the company that had just acquired our building management, and she was a shark. She'd announced a full inspection, a deep dive into the guts of our bustling but utterly dysfunctional office complex, and the panic had been palpable. Packages going missing, daily, repairs taking eons, standard operating procedure, staff friendly as puppies but about as effective at actually getting things done. The real kicker? Our actual building manager, a slick-haired dude we'll just call Manager Mike, decided the day of the corporate oversight visit was the perfect time for a sudden, mysterious migraine. Coward. He'd simply vanished, leaving a leadership vacuum big enough to swallow a forklift. But Mike didn't know everything. He didn't know about Ruan. Ruan, our janitor, wasn't just some guy with a mop. He was the quiet constant, the shadow figure who knew every creak, every flicker, every secret shame of that building. While everyone else was scrambling to hide overflowing bins or pretend the mailroom wasn't a black hole, Ruan was simply working. He'd been eavesdropping, of course. Not in a creepy way, but in that way people do when they're the only ones truly paying attention. He heard about Mike bailing, he heard about MS Reed's reputation, and he heard the fear in everyone's voices. And something in him just clicked. See, Ruan loved that building, not like an employee, but like a guardian. He'd seen it decline under Mike's leadership, the peeling paint, the overflowing recycling bins he'd clear every day, the broken light fixtures no one else bothered to report. He knew what was wrong, and more importantly, he knew how to fix it. He'd often stay late, quietly patching things up, replacing a fuse or tightening a loose door handle that had been awaiting repair for months. So, the morning of the inspection, while the remaining staff huddled together, whispering panicked theories about where Mike had gone, Ruan went to work. Not just his usual rounds, but his building-wide personal inspection. He didn't just clean, he transformed. The lobby, usually a chaotic purgatory of delivery boxes, became spotless. He buffed the floors until they gleamed, polished the glass until it practically disappeared, and in a touch that was pure Ruan, placed a small, vibrant bouquet of fresh flowers on the reception desk. He'd even spent his own money on them, a small act of rebellion and hope. He wanted the building to look its best, even if no one else seemed to care. When MS Reed arrived, her sharp eyes scanning for flaws, she found the lobby immaculate. The only person visible, meticulously adjusting a framed corporate mission statement, which, ironically, Mike had let hang crooked for weeks, was Ruan. Her gaze, which had made grown men stammer, locked onto him. "And you are?" she asked, her tone implying she already expected a disappointing answer. Ruan, wiping his hands on his uniform, stood a little straighter. "Ruan," he said simply. "Ruan?" she repeated, her voice betraying not an ounce of warmth. "Good. Tell me, Ruan, what are the primary maintenance issues you're seeing in this building?" She expected a canned response about light bulbs or leaky faucets. What she got was a strategic assessment. Ruan didn't just answer, he launched into it. He talked about the faulty HVAC system on the third floor that was constantly throwing fuses, explaining why it was happening and what specific part needed replacing. He detailed the chronic congestion in the mailroom, not just from lack of sorting, but from the inefficient layout that forced couriers to double-handle packages. He even pointed out the subtle, uneven settling of a specific section of the West Wing, suggesting it needed a structural engineer's assessment. He spoke with a quiet confidence, not as an employee reciting problems, but as someone intimately familiar with every living, breathing fault of the structure. MS Reed, initially stony-faced, found herself leaning in. Her pen, which had been poised to jot down generic complaints, was now furiously scribbling notes. She asked about the missing packages, and Ruan outlined a system for secure delivery and tracking he'd already mentally designed. She inquired about staff morale, and Ruan suggested cross-training initiatives and clearer communication channels. He wasn't just answering questions, he was pitching solutions to problems he'd been quietly observing for years. The inspection continued like that for hours. Reed toured the building, and Ruan was her Virgil, guiding her through the good, the bad, and the downright neglected. He didn't sugarcoat anything, but he always offered a pragmatic fix. He talked to her about the budget constraints, the difficulty getting contractors, and the general apathy that had set in. He was, to all appearances, the most dedicated, knowledgeable, and competent building manager she had ever encountered. Finally, back in the pristine lobby, Reed closed her notebook with a snap. "Ruan," she said, a hint of something unreadable in her voice. "You've been incredibly thorough, frankly, astonishingly so. Where's your office? I'd like to discuss these fixes with you and your team leader." Rowan shifted, a slight blush creeping up his neck. "My office, ma'am. Well, it's more of a janitor's closet on the ground floor, just by the service elevator." He gestured vaguely. "And my team leader, well, that would be Manager Mike. He's not in today." Reed froze. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in sheer disbelief. "Wait, you're the janitor?" Rowan nodded, a little sheepishly. "Yes, ma'am. Been here 5 years." The silence stretched, thick with implications. Reed stared at him, then around the spotless lobby, then back at him. A slow smile, not a shark's grimace, but a genuine, impressed smile, spread across her face. "Ruan," she said, her voice softening, losing its corporate edge. "You might be wearing a janitor's uniform, but you're running this building like you own it. You're not the manager in title, but you are absolutely the manager in action." And just like that, the corporate shark found her new general. Ruan was offered the job on the spot with a salary that made his jaw drop. He accepted, of course. From that day on, Ruan brought fresh flowers to the lobby every single morning. It became his personal signature, but it wasn't just the flowers. Under manager Ruan, the building was transformed. Repairs started happening. Packages stopped vanishing, and the staff, who still ran friendly, now ran efficient. He didn't just fix the building, he fixed the culture. He earned their respect not with a title, but with his quiet competence and unwavering dedication. So yeah, that's the story of Ruan. The janitor who knew his building better than anyone, and in a glorious "I don't work here, lady, but I totally should" moment, showed everyone what true leadership really looked like. It just goes to show sometimes the person with the mop has a better handle on things than the person in the corner office.
Hey, real quick before the next one, if you're enjoying this, subscribing helps a lot. All right, story number 3 coming up.
My heart was thumping like a drum solo in my chest, and not in a fun way. I never thought I'd end up in an actual physical struggle, screaming and kicking, just trying to find a fluffy blanket for my best friend's new apartment. But here we are. It was one of those days where the universe decided to test my patience, my fight-or-flight response, and my very definition of an "I don't work here" story. I'm Aubrey, 21 years old, usually pretty chill. Grace, my best friend since forever, and I were on a mission. Her new place needed a statement blanket, something cozy and Instagram-worthy, and we were determined to find it at the biggest home goods store in town. We were probably laughing a little too loudly, teasing each other about our questionable interior design choices, totally absorbed in the sea of throws and duvets. That's when it started. A voice, sharp and cutting, sliced through our bubble. "Excuse me, you two." We both turned, still half smiling, assuming it was someone looking for a specific product. This woman, let's call her Karen, marched right up to us. She looked like she'd just wrestled a bobcat and lost, with a face pinched tight like she smelled something awful. "Finally," she huffed, hands on her hips. "I've been looking for help for ages. Where's the manager? And where are the bath mats?" My smile faded. I gave her my politest, "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, but we actually don't work here. We're just shopping." Karen scoffed, her eyes narrowing. "Don't lie to me! You're clearly in uniform!" I glanced down at my perfectly normal jeans and a t-shirt. Grace was wearing a hoodie. "We looked about as in uniform as a pair of socks. Now stop wasting my time and take me to the bath mats, or I'm getting you fired." My stomach did a little flip. I hate confrontation. My hands started to feel clammy, and a nervous tremor went through me. "Really, ma'am? I promise you we don't work here." "If you just wait a moment, I can try to find someone who does work here for you." I gestured vaguely towards an actual employee in the distance, hoping she'd take the hint. But Karen wasn't having it. She stepped closer, invading my personal space. Her voice got louder, dripping with a venom that made my skin crawl. "Don't you dare patronize me. You will help me. This is your job." I was frozen, my mind just blanking, trying to figure out how to de-escalate without outright running away. That's when Grace, bless her quick-thinking, brave heart, stepped in. She put a hand on my arm, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "Ma'am," Grace said, her voice surprisingly calm, "it sounds like you're having a really frustrating time. We can definitely point you in the right direction." Karen's face brightened, a smug, triumphant grin spreading across it. "See? I knew you'd cooperate. Fine, lead the way. I need the plush, extra absorbent ones, not those cheap, flimsy things." She turned on her heel and started off, expecting us to dutifully follow. Grace shot me a look, a silent message. "Run." And we did. The second Karen's back was fully turned, Grace grabbed my hand and we sprinted, not walked, sprinted in the complete opposite direction. We weaved through rows of kitchenware, dodged a display of throw pillows, and basically bolted for the other side of the store, trying to lose her in the sheer chaos of a Saturday afternoon shopping rush. We ducked behind a towering display of oversized dog beds, giggling nervously, our hearts pounding from the adrenaline. "Think we lost her?" I whispered, peeking over a plush golden retriever. Grace shrugged, trying to catch her breath. "God, I hope so." She was absolutely unhinged. We decided to lay low for a bit, pretending to inspect some ridiculously expensive gourmet dog treats. We figured if we waited long enough, she'd either give up or find an actual employee. Big mistake. Huge. I guess Karen's radar for perceived customer service was finely tuned. We just emerged from the pet aisle, making our way cautiously towards the chip and snack section, because stress eating is a thing, okay? When I felt it. A vice-like grip clamped onto my left wrist. Hard. "There you are, you little liars." Karen's voice was a shriek, amplified by the high ceilings of the store. "I knew you were trying to escape. Now, you will take me to the bath mats, and then you're going to get fired for this insolence." Pain shot up my arm, and I gasped, trying to yank my wrist free. But she held on tight, her grip surprisingly strong. Panic, real, raw, terrifying panic flooded through me. This wasn't just an entitled lady anymore. This was physical. "Let go of me!" I yelled, my voice trembling. Grace immediately stepped forward, trying to pry Karen's fingers off my arm. "Hey, get your hands off my friend," Grace demanded, but Karen just snarled, turning her body to block Grace while still holding me captive. I started to thrash. I didn't even think, it was pure instinct. I kicked out, aiming for her shin, and then wildly swung my free arm, trying to hit whatever I could. I heard Grace yelling, and the sounds of other shoppers stopping, staring. Karen grunted, her grip finally loosening just enough for me to tear my wrist free. "She assaulted me. Call the police. Arrest her," Karen screeched, pointing a furious finger at me, completely ignoring that she was the one who had just grabbed me. By this point, a small crowd had gathered, and a store manager, a kind-faced man who looked utterly bewildered, was hurrying towards us. He'd clearly been observing the escalating situation for a minute, probably trying to figure out what the heck was going on, before finally realizing it was way beyond a customer complaint. "Ma'am, what is going on here?" the manager asked, his voice firm but calm, stepping between Karen and us. I saw you grab this young lady. That is absolutely not okay. Karen immediately turned her fury on him. She refused to help me. She ran away, and then she assaulted me. I want her arrested for assault and theft of service. The manager didn't even dignify the theft of service with a response. He took one look at my red, throbbing wrist, then at Karen's contorted face. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. Ma'am, you need to calm down, or I'll ask you to leave immediately. Karen did not calm down. She continued to scream, demanding my arrest, even as the manager calmly spoke into his phone, explaining the situation. When the police arrived a few minutes later, Karen tried to resist them, shouting about her rights and how she was the victim. It was a whole mess. Grace and I, shaking but otherwise okay, gave our statements. My wrist was a bit scraped and bruised, but nothing serious. The police took Karen away, charging her with assault and resisting arrest. Apparently, she had a bit of a history, which meant even more trouble for her. My parents, understandably, were furious when I called them, but also incredibly relieved. The store manager, who had been an absolute hero, didn't want us to leave empty-handed. He found the perfect fluffy blanket Grace had been eyeing and insisted on paying for it himself. It was a small, sweet gesture that somehow made the whole terrifying ordeal a little bit better. So yeah, that's the story of how a simple blanket shopping trip with my best friend turned into an actual physical altercation, complete with police screaming and a very vivid reminder that some people really, truly believe you owe them whatever they want. Even if you're just a random shopper, stay safe out there, guys. And maybe, just maybe, always shop with a quick-thinking friend like Grace.
My phone lit up again, another email, then another, then the office line started ringing. All from the same family. My hands were actually shaking. It wasn't just a bad day, it was turning into a full-blown siege, all because someone couldn't grasp the simple fact that a crematorium doesn't run the town cemetery. I'm Astrid, and this is the story of how a seemingly simple inquiry spiraled into a week-long nightmare, making me question my faith in humanity and my job. I've been working at the crematorium for about 4 months now. It's a job that, for obvious reasons, requires a certain level of sensitivity and professionalism. You deal with a lot of grief, a lot of delicate situations. But apparently that sensitivity doesn't extend to common sense when entitlement gets involved. It started innocently enough, just me doing my thing, answering emails, fielding calls, managing bookings. Then an email landed in my inbox, a rather insistent inquiry about a specific plot in the local cemetery. Now here's the thing. We're the crematorium. The cemetery?
That's council property, a completely different entity.
I politely, professionally explained this, giving them the exact contact details for the council. Happy to help with anything crematorium related, I wrote. But for cemetery plots, you'll need to reach out to them directly. Thought that was that. Nope. Less than an hour later, another email from the same person. Same question, just phrased slightly differently, as if I hadn't answered it the first time. My eyebrow twitched. I replied again, copy-pasting the relevant info and re-emphasizing that we literally do not manage cemetery plots. I even added a little hope this clarifies at the end, trying to keep it cheerful. Oh, if only I knew. The next email wasn't a question, it was an attack. How old are you? It demanded, bolded and underlined. My stomach clenched. I replied with my age, keeping it brief. The response was immediate and scathing. Too young to understand anything, clearly. You don't know what you're talking about. That stung. I'm new to the job, yeah, but I take pride in being competent. And honestly, it felt incredibly dismissive. Like my age somehow negated the information I was giving them. I took a deep breath, trying to channel my inner zen. I typed back, explaining that while I understood this was a difficult time, I even briefly mentioned that I'd recently lost a family member myself, hoping to bridge the gap with some empathy. The information remained the same. The council managed the cemetery. Not us? Big mistake. Huge. The Inquirer twisted it. Oh, so now you're bringing your personal life into it? Trying to manipulate me? Pathetic? You obviously don't care about people. I want to speak to someone who actually knows what they're doing and isn't so rude. Rude? I'd been nothing but professional. My hands were starting to shake with a mix of frustration and genuine indignation. I typed one last, very firm email. I have explained multiple times that we cannot assist with cemetery plots. I have given you the correct contact information. Further communication on this matter will not change the facts. And then I blocked their email address from sending to me directly because honestly I was done. They then called the main office line and I had to take it. The person screamed at me, accusing me of incompetence, callousness, and being a heartless child. I finally just said, "Sir, madam, I cannot help you. You need to call the council," and hung up, my heart pounding. They apparently stormed out of the office a few minutes later, having walked in off the street. I felt a wave of relief, but it was quickly replaced by a lingering dread. This felt too personal, too unhinged. And I was right. That was just the prologue. Over the next 2 days, my inbox became a war zone. Emails from concerned family member 1, distraught aunt, demanding cousin, inquirer's sibling. Each one a furious, often grammatically challenged, tirade. They accused me of everything from gross negligence to outright cruelty. They demanded I personally find this plot, arrange its upkeep, and issue a formal apology for my appalling service. They all echoed the same sentiment. Astrid is incompetent and rude. She clearly knows nothing because of her age. And she refused to help our grieving relative. I tried to explain. Each time I patiently typed out the same clear, concise explanation. Crematorium, not cemetery. Council handles cemetery. They just wouldn't listen. It was like talking to a brick wall, but the brick wall was yelling at me in all caps. The sheer audacity, the entitlement, it was breathtaking. They genuinely believed that because they wanted something, it automatically became my job regardless of what I told them. Then, the final blow. My manager called me into her office. My stomach dropped. "Astrid," she began, holding up a printout. "We've received several official complaints." My blood ran cold. Was I going to get in trouble for this? Had I handled it wrong? The anxiety was crippling. But my manager, bless her heart, is awesome. She'd already seen the original emails, recognized the pattern of irrational entitlement. She just wanted to confirm my side of the story, which, of course, matched up perfectly with the digital paper trail. "Don't worry," she said, seeing the panic in my eyes. "This isn't on you. You did everything by the book. These people are just impossible." I've sent them a formal reply, reiterating our position and advising them to cease harassment, and I've blocked them from contacting the main office line. I practically sagged with relief. It took almost a week for the complaints to finally dry up, but they did. I still occasionally check my spam folder for a rogue email from enraged relative 7, but so far, silence. What did I learn? Well, sometimes, no matter how clearly you explain something, how professional you are, or how much empathy you offer, some people just want to be entitled jerks. They'll twist your words, attack your character, and escalate a non-issue into a full-blown war simply because they don't get their way. And in those moments, all you can do is hold your ground, stick to the facts, and know when to cut off communication. Oh, and have an awesome manager. That definitely helps. So yeah, that's my story of how I almost lost my mind over a cemetery plot I had absolutely no business managing. Thanks for reading, and here's hoping your week is less confrontational than mine was.
This one fits right in with what you just saw.